Imagine being extremely thirsty. Your mouth is dry. Your body is weak. You haven't had water for hours. Then, finally, you see it. A river. You run toward it, kneel down, and prepare to drink. But there is one problem. That water could kill you. There are no water filters, no bottled water, no laboratories testing for bacteria, and you can't simply look at the water and know whether it's safe. For thousands of years, humans lived with this problem. Every drink was a gamble. One mistake could bring parasites, severe diarrhea, infection, or dehydration. And dehydration created a terrifying paradox. The more dangerous water became, the more desperately you needed it. So how did humans survive? The answer wasn't simply finding clean water. They had to learn which water could be trusted. And that knowledge may have been one of the most important survival skills humans ever developed. Hook. But how could they tell safe water from deadly water? Ancient humans didn't have scientific equipment, but they had something else. Observation. They watched the landscape. They noticed where animals gathered. They learned that certain springs continued flowing even during dry seasons. They discovered that clear, moving water was often safer than warm, stagnant pools. But clear didn't always mean safe. Some of the most dangerous organisms were completely invisible. A river could look perfectly clean and still contain parasites or harmful bacteria. So humans began paying attention to patterns. Where did healthy animals drink? Where did sick animals avoid drinking? Which springs stayed cold? Which water sources smelled strange? Over generations, these observations became knowledge, and knowledge became survival. But there was still a major problem. Even if humans found a relatively safe water source, they couldn't always stay there, because water doesn't move with you. Hook. So what happened when humans had to travel far away from their trusted water? Early humans were constantly moving. They followed animals. They searched for food. They escaped drought. They explored new territories. But every journey created the same problem. Water. You could carry food for a while. You could carry tools. But water was different. It was heavy. 1 liter weighs about 1 kilogram. Imagine carrying several liters across a hot landscape, while also carrying children, weapons, food, and tools. That meant humans had to become extremely good at finding water. They learned to recognize valleys. They followed animal tracks. They searched for green vegetation in otherwise dry landscapes. They watched birds and insects. And sometimes they dug. Even a small depression in the ground could collect precious water after rain. But finding water was only half the battle. The water still had to be stored. And that required something humans were becoming very good at. Containers. Hook. And the invention of containers completely changed how far humans could travel. Once humans learned to make containers, water became portable. Animal skins could hold liquid. Hollow plants could become simple bottles. Later, humans developed pottery. Now a family could collect water from a distant source and carry it back to camp. This sounds simple, but it changed human survival. People didn't have to live directly beside every river or spring. They could establish camps farther away. They could travel through dangerous environments. They could survive longer between water sources. But storage created another problem. Water sitting inside a container could become contaminated. And there was another danger humans slowly discovered. Heat. Warm water could become much more dangerous when microorganisms multiplied. So humans didn't just need to find water. They needed to protect it. And eventually, they discovered something even more powerful. They could change water itself. Hook. The solution was sitting beside almost every human camp. Fire. Fire was one of humanity's greatest survival technologies. It provided warmth. It scared predators. It helped humans cook food. But it also offered something else. Safer water. Heating water can kill many harmful microorganisms. Ancient humans didn't understand bacteria. They didn't know what pathogens were. They didn't know why boiling water sometimes prevented illness. But they could observe the result. People who drank certain heated liquids might become sick less often. Over generations, these practices could become part of everyday life. Humans also began preparing plants, roots, and other materials in water. Eventually, different cultures developed their own methods for treating and storing water. But there was still one enormous problem. Fire could make water safer. Containers could carry it. Observation could help locate it. But what happened when there simply wasn't enough water? Because sometimes the biggest enemy wasn't dirty water. It was no water at all. Drought could transform an entire landscape. Rivers became smaller. Plants disappeared. Animals moved away, and humans had to move with them. But ancient humans didn't simply wander randomly. They remembered. A spring discovered years earlier could become a critical survival location. A seasonal river could return after rain. A valley might contain underground moisture. Human memory became a map, and that map could be passed from one generation to another. Parents taught children where water could be found, which routes were dangerous, which springs remained during dry seasons, which places should be avoided. This knowledge was incredibly valuable because survival wasn't just about physical strength. It was about remembering information. And eventually, humans became so good at this that they could survive in environments where water seemed almost impossible to find. Deserts, dry grasslands, rocky mountains. But one of the most surprising solutions came from something humans were already surrounded by. Plants. Plants don't just provide food. Some also contain water. Ancient humans learned to recognize vegetation that survived in dry environments. Certain fruits, roots, stems, and leaves could provide valuable moisture. But using plants wasn't always simple. Some were poisonous. Others needed preparation. And knowing the difference could mean life or death. This is where human cooperation became incredibly important. One person's discovery could save an entire group. A plant that once seemed useless could become a survival resource. Knowledge spread through generations. People didn't need to personally discover everything. They inherited thousands of years of experience. And this may have been one of humanity's greatest advantages. Our ancestors didn't survive because every individual was incredibly strong. They survived because information survived with them. But there was still another problem. What if you had water and suddenly became sick anyway? Water wasn't the only danger. Even food could contain parasites. Dirty hands could spread disease. Animals could contaminate water sources. And crowded camps created new opportunities for infections to spread. Humans didn't understand germs, but they noticed patterns. They noticed that certain water sources caused illness. They noticed that heating food changed its safety. They learned to separate waste from living areas. They learned to protect important water sources. None of this happened overnight. It was thousands of generations of trial and error. A mistake could make someone sick. A successful technique could be remembered, then taught to children, then passed to grandchildren. Slowly, survival knowledge accumulated. And this is what made humans different. We didn't need to genetically evolve a special organ for finding clean water. We built something much more powerful. Culture. And culture allowed survival knowledge to travel farther than any individual could. So how did humans survive without modern clean water? They didn't. Not in the way we think of clean water today. Their water was often risky. Their environments were dangerous. And many people undoubtedly became sick or died from contaminated water. But humans became incredibly good at reducing the risk. They watched animals. They remembered landscapes. They carried water. They built containers. They used fire. They learned from plants. And most importantly, they shared knowledge. One generation learned something. The next generation inherited it, then improved it. And eventually, thousands of small discoveries became the foundation of human survival. Today, we turn on a tap without thinking. Clean water appears instantly. But behind that simple action is an enormous history of human experimentation, cooperation, and adaptation. Our ancestors didn't survive because the world was safe. They survived because they learned how to make a dangerous world a little safer. And perhaps that's one of the most important things about being human. We don't just adapt to the environment. We learn from it and teach the next generation how to survive.